held great for 15 years. Somebody power washed it with a 0 cent. Filled it all up. So I've been trying to fix it since.
I've got 8:30. Let's call the meeting to order. Get in the back. First item is the adoption of the agenda.
Move to approve as printed. Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next is minutes from the previous meetings. Anybody have any changes or additions?
I move we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have any business from the audience today? I don't see many of our guests. So let's keep moving on and jump right into reports. Jim, you're up.
Morning, Jim.
One action item, we've got $600,000 in the budget for grant-related expenses. We spent probably about 40 of that on one of the pickups and a little bit more of that on some of the aerial fiber we've been doing on North 65. We'd like to use about 200 of that to go towards a bigger cable plow. What James is working on getting some demo models in. The size we think we'll get is about $200,000. There's one size smaller and one size bigger. We might potentially go one size smaller. I don't think we'll go bigger. So we're looking at roughly $200,000 for a bigger cable plow and a trailer.
You really need that, don't you? Long.
For some of these people out in the country, they're a quarter mile off the road, and our little plow's not going to be very conducive to doing that.
The one you're using now, you'll retain for
Yep,
yards
right,
and
right.
small jobs.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the skid steer mounted ones that the sheriff had skid steer with the electric department that we have to plow, and it's also got the backhoe attachment on it, blades and trencher attachment too. So
I make a motion to approve requesting bids for a new cable plow.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve requesting bids for a new cable plow. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved.
thank you. As far as other stuff, we did pull half a mile of fiber on the North 65 yesterday. We're starting to frame the next mile and a half section. We're scheduled to be down at the airport today, getting fiber to their fuel terminal, their new card reader thing. So hopefully have that up and running. And it's a little bit too muddy to do other stuff that day or two this week. So we started working out the park for their cameras on some of that. But that's going to be a lower priority job for us. But other than that, that's all I've got. Unless you got questions.
Anybody have any additional questions for Jim? Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Doug, electric distribution, you're up.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I do have a couple of action items for you. First one being Southeast substation transformer 15 kV switchgear upgrades. We had transformer bids were open on Friday, March 19th, for a new 15, 20, 25 MVA transformer. We received 3 bids. As you can see there, did give that to the engineers and review that with them, compared to bids. Had several questions back and forth with the vendor that we'd gotten answered. The engineer did recommend going with the low bid from Graybar. So with that, I'd like to make a recommendation for a motion to accept the low bid from Graybar for a GE Prolec 15, 20, 25 MVA transformer in the amount of $626,370.52.
On our budget, we got 1.5. We're gonna have labor and stuff to install this, or
We are,
is it gonna be more than just this amount of that budget?
with that bid, that includes the delivery of the transformer and setting it on the pad. Really, we'll just have to wire the transformer, the 13.2 side, 161 side. Really, everything in the substation, we're gonna try to do in-house with the exception of foundations, transformer foundation, switchgear foundation, or the circuit switcher foundation. But everything else, oil containment, bus modifications, structures, everything else we're gonna do in-house. Not a lot gonna happen this year. The transformer's not supposed to be here till the end of October potentially. Which they did have a $20,000 adder that may or may not be needed if the transformer is filled with oil below 50 degrees. at that time of year, the potential's there, but we'll see when we get there. But yeah,
So it depends on the temperature at the time.
exactly.
Okay.
Because they have to have a hot oil circulation pump to pump that oil, heat that oil, I guess, when they fill that with oil, if it's below the
If
ambient
it's
temperature,
below 50, it will need
degrees.
additional, it'll be additional charge.
Right.
Got to kind of thin it out so it doesn't.
It's
go in.
moisture, when the oil serves two purposes, it cools and insulates the transformer, so at 161,000 volts, the dew point or whatever, when you get below a certain temperature, you heat that oil, and that helps remove any potential moisture that's in it, so that's really the main, you don't want any moisture in that oil, so, because once it's assembled, it's a sealed unit, and they put a nitrogen blanket on it, and it will never be exposed to atmosphere again. But when you get below a certain temperature, you have to heat that oil while you're putting it in there, just to make sure the quality of it's where it needs to be. So hope that kind of explains it a little bit more.
No, it's kind of great. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I
before.
never
That's
heard of
pretty-
Yeah, it's you can't think of it like the normal transformer that hangs on the pole, because this thing's got again 161,000 volts, and oil's used for insulation. It has to be very, very clean. So
Good. Thank you.
I make a motion to accept the low bid from Gray Bar for a GE ProLec 2025 MVA transformer in the amount of $626,370.52.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to accept the low bid from Gray Bar for a GE Prolec 15-2025 MVA transformer in the amount of $626,370.52. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen. I do have one additional action item for the conference room chairs where we are currently located. This is a budgeted item. As you know, these chairs aren't very comfortable. The building was built in 2000. We moved in. We use this conference room quite a bit. It's used by other departments for training purposes. Some training purposes that last several days, several hours a day. And just extended time, these chairs just are not comfortable. I'd like to go ahead and try to update these chairs. And with that, my recommendation is to replace the electric distribution conference room chairs using quotes.
I don't think they talk about this.
Make a motion to replace electric distribution and conference room chairs using quotes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to replace electric distribution conference room chairs using quotes. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Get on it.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd like to add would be the southeast sub 161 kV SF6 circuit breaker 111. We did get that complete. The field service tech was in, inspected that, and we have since put that breaker back in service. The substation is switched back, so we are back to normal. Everything went very well with that project, and we're very pleased with the way that turned out. So, other than that, I don't have anything else to add unless you have any questions for me.
Is there any additional questions for Doug? Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Move on to Grant Underground Facilities.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I do have one action item for you. It's the replacement of two pickups. The first truck we replaced is truck 203. It's a 2012 half-ton two-wheel drive. It is utilized every day by our service person to do turn-ons, turn-offs, rereads, et cetera. This truck is used every day, whether it's raining or snowing. We installed our engine hour meters on these trucks several years ago. They didn't come out of the factory with them. They have since, they don't work anymore. This truck has 115,000 miles on it. If you do the engine hour conversion, its actual miles are closer to 130,000. This particular truck has a rear main seal leaking, has several mechanical issues. This truck would be probably sold on Purple Wave or sold outright through silent bids. We would, that's the recommendation of the fleet mechanic. We would wash our hands of that particular truck. The second truck is 502. There is a mistake there. That is a 2006 model instead of a 2004. Its engine hour meter has since quit too, so but that's the actual miles on that truck is 127,000 plus. This unit is used every day. It is a four-wheel drive unit used every day on water main, sewer main projects. It helps assist pulls trailers, and it's the one that leaves job sites to get parts so that the service truck doesn't have to. Tools can remain on site. This would start a chain reaction of sorts. We would keep this truck and move it down to pull the mower and use for a spare in the winter when we operate valves because it is four-wheel drive. We would, in a sense, get rid of truck 204, which is a 2004 model. It's got 108,000 miles on it. It's a single cab, two-wheel drive truck. We would it would be utilized by other departments or sold outright. So at this time, my recommendation is a motion to approve requesting bids for the purchase of 2 new half-ton four-wheel drive pickups. This is a budgeted item, both.
What's the back end gonna look like? Just bed, or are we gonna put a flatbed on it, or?
It's just be a normal pickup, just a crew cab pickup, yeah, 2.
I make a motion to approve requesting bids for purchasing 2 new half-ton 4x4 pickups.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve requesting bids for purchasing 2 new half-ton 4x4 pickups. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
The only other thing I have is both projects for the summer, the crosstown tie and the North English sewer main. We have received all material but the pipe. It is due in first of next week. We are starting to mobilize crews to get equipment on site. We have sent out letters to people involved in the neighborhood. So we expect to start that job sometime middle of next week, both jobs. Other than that, that's all I have unless the board has any questions.
That'll complete that North English.
That'll complete that.
Tie it all up.
I discussed it with the railroad. They don't have any issue with us. We're gonna be pretty close to them at the end of the project. And that will complete that run and be done over there.
Randy, think we can get those pickups within budget?
I think so.
I think so.
The way we utilize state contract and things, I think I'm fairly confident that we can get those in budget.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing. I'm like, man, it's pretty tight.
Right.
Pretty tight, I would think.
We typically get 25% off of sticker. I mean, it's, you know, we get a pretty good deal. So we get fleet pricing, from the manufacturer, and it's, I think we should be in very good shape there, so.
I think it's the same one as what I've got on order. I think it was 25, if I remember right.
Yeah, we get really good pricing on vehicles. I mean, it's a good thing, so.
Is there any other questions for Grant? Thank you, Grant. Nolan, wastewater.
Nolan.
Thanks for catching me on my way out to Martin Center. Otherwise, I'd be sitting out there by myself right now. So, appreciate you.
Let's get the first line of the board back.
Just some updates on the filter building. The rollers were actually put back on the presses on Tuesday. The guys are still kind of tying some things together. They're putting belts back on today. The headworks pump, I got a call from FTC yesterday. I need to get with Grant and the electrician, see about what sometime next week reinstalling that pump. And on the I&I issue, we had that meeting with Burns and McDonald. I don't know how much, Jeff, I don't know what you had planned to speak of on that, but looking back kind of through our records, last year for March, we had similar rainfall, but we flooded that basement twice this year. Last year we had 5.7 inches of rain in March, and we flooded it one time. At 5.4 inches this year, and we flooded it twice. I don't know what that difference is necessarily, but then for April of 2020, we had 4 inches of rain. And we've had just a little less than that so far this month. So all of all of April 2020, we pumped 78 million gallons. Through this morning, we've already pumped almost 71 million gallons with less rainfall. So it's not good news, but I'm trying to make you aware. So after that meeting with Burns and McDonald, I think we were trying to get some numbers together about a potential system-wide flow study that could tell us kind of pinpoint potential issues in town where the worst of our issues are gonna be and how to address them moving forward. They are also looking at some options about moving our motors, upstairs. So, I mean, at least at that point, if the water comes up, we're not spending that $5,000 to $10,000 every time replacing motors or, all the time spent cleaning and everything. That can be eliminated, so.
I think that needs to be a priority, like immediately.
Yeah, we really got two things we discussed. One was the pumps, because they're kind of two separate issues. They're looking at some type, instead of moving the pumps that are completely in the bottom of that basement, they're looking at some type of submersible or motor that's rated to be flooded. And then the grit paddle drives, I think that's what those are on the middle floor.
Yeah.
They're just looking at putting those up on a pedestal and running a shaft down. He's got a high water mark in there, and I said, just as long as you're a foot above that. So they're gonna give us a technical memo on that. So hopefully we can address that problem, because it is no one had stated, it is getting worse. It costs money. He got the pumps back Friday. Fortunately, he didn't put them in because it flooded, Saturday? We got 1.8 inches of rain and the basement flooded again, so. And I've got some things I'll talk about as well, kind of when we get to my section. But the I&I part, it didn't happen overnight. It's gonna take a while to address. They're gonna get back with us with some recommendations on a flow study. Probably looking at budgeting that next year. I mean, it's we just need to take our time, get a good plan and move forward. But in the meantime, we need to prevent more equipment damage.
I was gonna say, there's some immediate things that sounds like we can address.
Right, yeah. So we've kind of got it broke up into three different parts now, but the focus right now is on those grit pumps and the paddle drive motors to keep those from flooding. And his guys got, a lot of other things to work on down there. You just can't keep flooding those, and it was just a poor design from the beginning. So it's time to do something.
Jim, how would they go about a flow study?
What they'll do is they'll break your collection system down into basins or different sections, and they'll have monitoring equipment in there. They like to monitor it for 60 days, I believe. Is that what they said, Nolan?
Yeah.
For 60 days. So they'll measure flow, and then they'll measure rainfall, and so you can, which basin has the worst problem and kind of where to start. Kind of low hanging fruit, so to speak. But we'll have more information for you.
They'll section area.
They'll section it out and really give you solid data and say, this is, you may have problems everywhere, but where is the worst problem at? So we can kind of focus on that. And I think we've got great GIS data and great records that should help with that study. And that could be, expanded on later. If we had the big industry come in, they could run a hydraulic model off of it. I mean, it's kind of building something that's permanent that we could use later. But yeah, they compare rainfall, flows, really provide good data, and that's something we can present to you guys and the public later when we try to figure out how we need to address it. So I think it's just a good place to start.
The only other thing I had to add was on the Headworks HVAC system, we have actually had two of those companies on site to look at, still waiting to hear back from a couple others, so. Trying to move forward with that. That's really all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
Any other questions for Nolan? Thanks, Nolan. Travis?
Morning, Travis.
Just a few updates. The wastewater recovery pump project contractor is headed our way this morning. So those should be complete today. Then on number 3, primary and secondary basins, that is complete and they're back in service. And then the safety walkthrough stuff, items, that has all been corrected, so. And then, you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Most of the safety items are pretty minor stuff. Anyway,
Yeah, they-
okay.
Little minor things,
That's what I thought.
so it's pretty easy to take care of, so.
So you wanna address the first bullet point?
Leave me alone.
All right, any further questions for Travis? Thanks, Travis. Carl, Electric Production, how you doing?
Good, morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Not a whole lot to add. The EIQ and the EIA 23 were the last of the government reports for 2020, with the exception of the one Tony's finishing up. Genesis Environmental did remove the waste oil that showed up in the old warehouse basement. They actually pumped out about 800 gallons. So there was something under there that, but they got it all out for us and we're proceeding on with that. Had demolition coordination meeting with Aaron's Contracting Tuesday, and things are going well there. Been talking about dirt work and stuff. They gave some things that we're considering there and moving forward with that. We talked about the change order for getting rid of the concrete and filling that in last meeting. So that is kind of moving forward. We got some more information to work with there. Just a point of interest, on the Saturday, the 24th, that morning, they're planning on dropping the stack, the last stack that's there on Unit 5. If anybody's interested in seeing that, we get quite an audience over in the church parking lot sometimes. Watch those guys. Did receive at the end of the day yesterday a second quote for maintenance work on 10 and 11. I haven't really had time to go over that yet, but I'll go over that and have something to on that next meeting. And with Constellation February invoice, Tony and I do have a teleconference set up with Constellation at 1:30, so hopefully we'll get that worked out, get that resolved. And that is all I have, unless you have any questions.
Was Genesis able just to skim off the oil off the top like we talked about, or did they have to?
They did do that, the black oil, the heavy oil that's on the top, but the pipe where it was coming from, they pumped out. There's evidently a tank or something in there. It ended up being tested as number 2 diesel fuel was what it was, and that has evidently been there since the 1920s. Those units that were in that old warehouse ran off the number 2 diesel, and they've got it all pumped out and said we're good just to cover it up. So
Interesting.
Something else I might add, we did get the closeout documents for EPA on the asbestos removal, so everything's been Carl's they got a thumb drive and got it downloaded into our records, so we did get the closeout documents from Aaron's and ARSI, and everything's good there, so we can check that one off the list.
oh, one other thing that happened last night, we had a break-in the whole maintenance shop tool room. The police are investigating that. I'll have to go report when we're done here. They got into Aaron's trailer too, but they said there wasn't anything in there for them to take. It appears as though they did get quite a few tools out of our tool room.
That's great news.
It's being reviewed.
Perfect.
Multiple are being reviewed, so. I've been in touch. Chief Donnell called me and we'll get whatever we have to them find it. It's not if we find it, it's when we find it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Carl, thank you for everything you've been doing the last couple of months.
Yes.
With our gyms running great, the cloud point in our diesel. I mean, the hard work you put in is really starting to show and pay off. So tell your crew, thank you.
Thank you very much.
On the recycle, I mean, everything, you got a lot on your shoulders, and you've done an exceptional job of keeping everything running and keeping everything going. So we appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Kurt.
Is there any other questions for Carl? Thanks, Carl. Megan, HR?
Morning.
Morning.
I don't have anything to add to what's in your packet. Be happy to answer questions.
We getting any seasonal help sign up, Megan?
Not seeing too many applications yet, Spencer.
Any questions for Megan? Thank you. Tony? Morning.
Morning, Tony.
We did get our March wholesale power bill. It was $994,000. Obviously, there's $21,000 of transmission charges, which start showing up the first of the year. That will go up in June, and then it will go up even more in January of next year. But the good thing is that we did have a $110,000 credit. So, and majority of that credit was, if you read through the packet there, was obviously Unit 6. Carl and those guys running from the 13th to the 20th in February, and we were able to run on number 2 oil. So instead of natural gas, which saved us a tremendous amount. So the ultimate result was we had a credit on there of energy credit of $2.7 million. And that is going to adjust over the next few months. They're going to have true ups going forward. So that number, I'm expecting the number to change as we go forward some. But included in that credit is obviously Carl's and those guys' labor, fuel, and then they have a calculation in there for maintenance. So kind of going forward, I think it would be smart for us to set up some kind of funds to maintenance these units. I think in the past, we just, when an expense comes up, we make that decision if we're gonna fix it or not. I think it's proven that it's pretty valuable to have that unit, 10, 11 as well. So I'm still working through that, but I'll probably have something coming up where we're gonna set some kind of.
Regulated maintenance,
Yeah.
Just kind of like similar we do with our
like a well.
our mains and everything like
Correct.
that. It's just something that we set money aside for
Yeah.
constantly.
I think that we need to do that going forward. So, because I know, I talked to Carl, and I don't think, Carl, we've had any big maintenance on that in 12, 15 years. So, and it's running a lot. So there's gonna be some maintenance, yeah. So,
Well, I think with what it's just proved, I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy not to do that.
yeah.
A lot of communities sitting around scratching their heads right now trying to figure out how they're going to pay their energy bill.
Yeah, I've got a little bit more of an update there from the MOPEP Service and Rates Committee meeting. So, yes, we are very, very fortunate, very fortunate.
So, yeah, so I'm still going through that information, but I'll have something for you guys, let you know how we're gonna do that. So, other than that, just some miscellaneous reports I'm still working on. Me and Jeff have been talking to Toth on our time of use. They've gotten us some pretty good information. We're liking what we're seeing. We have another call from next week. So we're getting close on that. Other than that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you guys have.
I think on the time of use, we really need to figure out how to get that to the public in, I don't want to say layman's terms, but layman's terms, how they can understand exactly how that works. And I don't know what that document looks like, but.
We'll share with you. We're trying to simplify it and make it as easy to understand. We're gonna only have, I mean, you can obviously have as many, pricing points throughout the day. I mean, you can have 2, 3, 4, and we're going with 2, peak and off peak. And, with certain times. So, and I think we're looking at the possibility right now. We've got commercial, large general, small general, and then you get into demand. Demand's really hard for people to understand. So I think we can incorporate, when you go to time of use, the demand component, you address that with your on-peak pricing. So, and I think it's a lot easier to explain. But yeah, Steve and I agree. We're the first ones probably in the pool looking at this because, we've kind of put ourselves in that position with our meters, the decision we made on those years ago. So it's going to take a little time, but education and, it may even involve public meetings or some stuff like that to get the word out. We may even, have people voluntarily try it out and that type of thing as well. So, but I'm really happy with what we're seeing. I think it will provide customers a choice and an opportunity to save money. Just right now, I think we're looking at in the 12-cent range for on-peak and 6-cent range for off-peak. So, if you choose to do your laundry and run your large appliances, you can move that use of that stuff around to off-peak and really save. And I think that's great, giving your customers a choice of when. And that's how that's how we buy power. We're just passing that straight through to our customers. But as we move forward, we'll have some information for you guys and kind of work with you to come up with a plan moving forward. I'm excited about it.
We can also explain to them how, the less peaks we have, the more that we can shave off of ours in general, they will benefit from that as well.
Right.
I like the idea. Once we have that information, having public meetings, or I know like we did some booths at Springfield or somewhere where we're just
Home and garden show.
or something like that, just where, hey, if you want to take advantage of these opportunities, here it is in the black and white form.
Yeah.
Save yourself money and help the utility as a whole.
Right. Well, it helps everybody. I mean, it cuts our costs and their costs the same. We're just going to pass that savings through to them. And if our revenue goes down, it's not going to hurt us because our costs are going to go down. I mean, there's a direct correlation between that. So it's not going to hurt the utilities. It's good for everybody to be able to do that. So, like I say, we're in the initial phases of that. We're ahead of the curve. I don't know anybody else in the pool that is doing that. The pool has told us for some time that, they were going to change their wholesale pricing and they were going to go to real-time energy pricing, and that's going to happen in June, and that's kind of why we've been working that way. So,
We did our meters. You kind of referenced it, and we did that.
Right.
5 years ago now. I think we started working on that, and that was a great move.
Well, so we had real data. I know Jim worked pretty hard to get data to Toth. I don't know how many millions of lines. It was a lot, but so they had real-time data off our meters to compare to the data from Moped on our usage at the wholesale level and correlate those two to come up with pricing. So, I mean, it's a lot. It's a data-driven pricing schedule and should be a good product when we're done. I'm real happy with those. I think Tony is as well. I mean, that's all they do, and it's obvious when you deal with them, they know what they're talking about. So, very, very excited about where we're going with this.
And it should time out with billing software, software and things, which was a piece of that as well.
How's that coming? Is it getting pretty close on?
Yeah, we've been talking to them about it every other week. They've been giving us a checklist of stuff to do. Right now they're doing an audit of our software, telling us what's compatible, what's not compatible. We got that done. I got a meeting scheduled with them next week. So we should be getting ready to start that beginning phase. So we're like in the pre-works now, and now we're here in the next month or two, we should be starting that initial phase. So I'll keep you guys informed as that goes along. But,
They probably got people working on that are younger than the software that we've been using.
No doubt.
But it's looking good, so.
Yeah, what we've had worked very well
Yeah.
for a long time.
For a long time,
I think that's, we've got, you know, it was developed by in-house employees and has been really, really worked well. And it was just time, so.
And hopefully it'll take a little bit off of our in-house.
Yeah.
You know,
With
they
the
got
growth
a
in our
lot
internet.
more stuff to handle now than
Right.
ever before.
Any other questions for Tony? Thank you, Tony. Morning, Jeff.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
You guys should have a document, addressing the first item, the request for funding from the city council. This took quite a while. We have never done this before. So, you know, we just didn't have a document in the drawer that we could pull out and, you know, kind of have guidelines on. So we've spent a lot of time over the last week, working on getting something that was, you know, was gonna work. Like I say, again, this is the first time. You know, obviously I had concerns when this hasn't been done before. It sets a precedent. It's, you know, I think initially they wanted to do a fund transfer. I think we visited with them and we've come up with a loan because, you know, as I mentioned in here, our rates are established based on our cost to provide service. And, you know, part of that is establishing funds for specific issues. I think we've talked about that. And then adequate reserves, you know, to maintain services. Loan transfers, we typically use those interdepartmentally under the umbrella of the Board of Public Works and the Utilities. And you know, that's been a great practice. It has saved our water and wastewater departments a lot of money at no cost to our electric customers because we're only getting T-bill rates when we have that money invested. That's all we charge. You know, the bonding interest would be much higher. So, I guess getting down to it, I do recommend entering into this agreement. It's, I think, you know, there's an opportunity here that's kind of a special situation. I don't know that, you know, this isn't repaving streets or, you know, buying new trucks or something like that. This is kind of unique. And given that, I think, you know, we need to try to do what we can to help with that, but at the same time, remember why we're here and to protect our customers. So, you see my recommendation there is a motion to approve entering into an intergovernmental loan agreement in the maximum amount of 1.7 million plus 10% contingency, and for the specific purpose of the demolition of structures at the property formerly known as the Marshall Rehabilitation Center as presented. And you should have a copy of that agreement. So, tough decision, but I think at the end of the day, I think, you know, this is something I hope will work great for both sides. It'll work great for the community when we're done, and you know, won't affect our customers. Shouldn't. At this time, we don't see any issues with that. But as you guys know, the polar vortex and those things, you never know where you're going to end up on those side of things. So, you know, we kind of need to go into that knowing that there is a small chance that this could have an effect. But I don't think at this time that it should affect us. So.
I agree. I mean, it's for the community, it's the right thing to do. I mean, we have to do something to help out. We've been stuck in the same place for years and years, and something needed to happen. And this is an opportunity to help our citizens, and it's not going to affect their utility rates. I just think it's going to benefit everybody in the long run.
That's certainly our hope. I mean, that's
you know, we're going into this with our eyes open, and we're doing, you know, I believe we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, like I say, it's not trucks and row. I mean, this is a unique situation, and you kind of have to look at it that way. It's just not. I mean, I've been in utilities for 33 years, and I've never seen the city have an issue or try to tackle something as substantial as this. So I think the uniqueness of the situation and the opportunities that it provides kind of promote doing this for the first time. So that's my recommendation. Obviously, you know, you guys feel free to ask questions, and you may have your own concerns, but hopefully I've addressed most of those.
Jeff, I've been hit up a couple times. Where did the perception come from that the park golf course specifically borrowed money from the utilities for the sprinkling system? And that never happened?
No, I
Okay,
think what happened was, Jeff, correct me if I'm, just tell the story.
yeah.
So we look back at the records, and there was some discussion between the board and the city about doing a loan. And through that process, I think the city decided to go with bondings. I think there were certificates of participation that were used to fund the golf course. So the loan never materialized. So it could have been just that there was that discussion, and obviously that's been a long time ago, and you know how things.
Yeah.
There was an agreement with the city for the effluent reuse. We did build the effluent reuse facility. That was to help them cut their water bills.
Yeah.
And then there was a fee for service provided as part of that. So it wasn't a loan per se. We built something, we charged them a fee to build that and provide a service other than potable water. So there was a couple things done, but a loan was discussed, and that may be where, you know, we all think back 10 or 20 years, and sometimes it's difficult to remember exactly what happened, and I think that's probably what occurred here. So hopefully that kind of helps. But
Yeah, I got some information from an older board member that wasn't entirely accurate.
Yeah.
And I got it 5 minutes before that meeting, and I had really no time.
Steve,
to
a
go
lot
back and
of
ask questions.
those golfers believe that's what happened. We loaned them money for that.
And it was discussed, and that board member was probably part of that discussion, and then maybe didn't remember the whole process, because I don't think that member's a golfer, so.
No, he's not, but.
So,
but I
you know, that
I
would
just
make it.
spoke on that.
Yeah.
Well, but there's a lot of people who believe that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I hope that sets the record straight.
Yeah, but
I appreciate that
But
question.
I really do hate, and I won't do it again, just for the simple fact that I don't want to be the purpose of miscommunication going out into the community. You know, I'll do a better job of
Well,
checking
I
out
think it was
resources.
already there before you said it.
doing my due diligence before I speak.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that, Spencer. That brings up another point. You know, there's a misconception now that we have $31 million in reserves, and that is not the case. We've got around $14 million in reserves. And then the rest, we do have, like Wick had mentioned, we have a lot of funds to address specific issues. We've got an I&I fund, which obviously is important right now. Our bills average $2.5 million a month. It's just, I don't think people kind of understand the purpose of reserves and different funds, and unless you're in the utility industry and familiar with what can go wrong, I mean, you could spend a lot of money in a hurry if you're not careful.
So really, at 14 million in reserves, it's still not, it's about $1 million short of where we should be.
And and so when you combine all those funds, and you take out, of course, in that figure, I think that was given, there's also customer deposits. Well, customer deposits, that's not our money. And there was about 600,000 in customer deposits. So if you take all that out, I think right now we're probably in total cash and all funds, we're probably at about 28 million. And part of the reason for the 7.5% electric decrease last year was we no longer have the power plant. We don't have boilers to fix. We don't have those liabilities. We don't need to have as much reserves. The power plant demo came in much lower than we anticipated. So we were able to give that discount knowing we were gonna lower reserves by giving that money back to the customers through a discount. And we knew we were gonna have a wholesale rate decrease this June. So there was a lot of thought that goes into a lot of that. I mean, you can just, on the surface, it looks like one thing, but if you don't know all the details, it's really hard to judge. So I know, I just wanted to make that point as well.
But at the time that we lowered that, we did not realize that we were gonna have additional charges.
Correct.
In June, and then again in January, so we'll see how all that.
Those transmission
Falls out.
charges.
Transmission
Mhm.
charges.
Transmission charge.
That's gonna kind of wipe out the wholesale thing, but I think we'll still be in good shape, so. Yeah, there's just a lot of moving parts and pieces, and if you just look at one thing, you're not gonna see I mean, just looking at all that as one thing, it would not be correct. Anyway,
And I think the money in there has a specific purpose. It's not just sitting in there to sit in there. It's in there for a reason.
Mhm.
And part of that is in our talking loans, so.
yeah, that's a good point. As I mentioned in my recommendation, that this may affect our ability to do an interdepartmental loan for the wastewater treatment plant improvements, which we don't have enough money in there anyway. We're really working hard to figure that out. We've got some other avenues. Once we get through this, I'll kind of talk about those. But I don't want to get too far off topic.
Are we still on time?
No, I think we're on the jet.
Around the June?
Yeah, no, we're on to the request for funding in my memorandum of recommendation. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. We got off track a little bit. I'll get back there.
Well, I think it's been the intention of this board to do what we can to help our community, but do it in a way that protects the utility, protects our customer, protects our employees. And if this is what we've got that fits that need, and we can make it not set a precedent, make this a one-time type situation, then that's what we need to do.
Stephen Whip, well said. Both feel the same way. I don't see that the school board can move on until that gets cleared out there. Do you, Steve? Nothing they can do right at this point.
No, it has to come down.
Until it has to come down.
And honestly, they've got a great price to do it.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, they did.
The city did a very good job, and
You talked about the power plant coming in below budget. This came in well below some of
Absolutely.
our original.
Yeah.
It was, I knew they were working on it, and when I was given the price, I thought I need to see that contract. And I looked at it and I thought, no, they did an absolute wonderful job. This is a lot less than I thought.
I was
So,
skeptical when I saw it too. Just something's not.
I don't know how we can't help them. That's just a unique situation.
Yeah.
And certainly if we could do it with no impact to our customers. I mean, it's a loan, not just giving money away. So.
And it's a loan with very favorable terms. I haven't read this word for word yet, but knowing what I know, it's not going to put the city at a deficit where they're not going to be able to continue what, operations is normal. So,
Well, it's the T-bill rates and with interest right now, it's almost a zero interest loan.
you've got plenty of time to figure it into the next year's budget.
Yeah, we're gonna make it effective October. That works with our budget, and will work we want them to have time to work it into their budget. Again, it's kind of, middle ground as far as that goes. I think they would have wanted it a little bit longer. We've got some things going on. I think that we felt like we should, at least have it at their budget, and that was a compromise, so.
We've been accommodating to this request, so.
We try.
Yeah. And thank you guys for all your efforts. I know a lot has gone into it across the board, so.
so can I go ahead and make the motion?
That's, it's up to you guys now.
So make a motion to approve entering into an intergovernmental loan agreement in the maximum amount of 1.7 million plus 10% as contingency for the specific purpose of demolition of structures at the property formerly known as Marshall Rehabilitation Center as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve entering into an intergovernmental loan agreement in the maximum amount of $1.7 million plus 10% as a contingency and for the specific purpose of the demolition of structures of the property formerly known as the Marshall Rehabilitation Center as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any not in favor? Okay. When do we think that they're going to request the first draw on that?
Probably not until I was assuming not until they start, till what is,
I didn't know if they were gonna start mobilizing or, start working on the back of the property or anything soon.
until like May, I think.
Yeah, I
Probably
think,
time it when they're out of school.
Yeah.
yeah, I think just right now, they were waiting for this funding approval before they signed the contract, I think. But yeah, I think
it was mentioned they wanted to wait till school was out.
yeah, I think that's kind of,
Yeah, they didn't want Spain Hire running around with big machines out there.
I think this works in their schedule pretty good, what we're doing
Is
here.
the funds coming from the natural gas reserve like they originally suggested or?
It's gonna depend on the timing.
Okay.
The funds in natural gas are currently invested, so
Okay.
depending on how the draws come out.
That's right.
We can get that figured out.
Yeah, that can all be figured out later.
All right, moving on a little bit. If you guys don't have any more questions, I'll just talk a little bit about MOCAP subcommittee on services and rates meeting. As you'll see there, there's still, the polar vortex is still a huge issue. As we know, there was people in Kansas City, they were having rolling blackouts. Lots of areas. We were fortunate we didn't experience that. There was some discussion about lessons learned from the winter event. There's resource adequacy requirements from the Southwest Power Pool. And to meet those resource requirements, they have member units just like ours. We've got, 10, 11, 6, 7, 8, 9, and we get capacity credits. So because those are used to meet these resource requirements, we get capacity credits. Well, in turn for those capacity credits, they want you to run when they need you. Well, they have 230 megawatts of member units, and only 60 megawatts of that was able to respond during the polar vortex. We were able to respond with all our units and met 26.6 of the member capacity that was available. And I would like to, again, echo what Steven said. What staff has done, I know they had a diesel pump last year they had issues with, they replaced. We never really ran this unit on diesel before. I know Jim did some programming. I don't think this unit, it's a 1973. I don't know that it's ever run better than what it's running right now. Having these local units is a huge hedge against the market. Not only did we avoid a $1.6 million increase in our bill, we were able to eliminate that and part of our next month's bill. So huge benefit to our customers to have that ability. And it's really important, I think, a lot of people are seeing what's going on with the power plant. And don't think we have local generation. And again, that's probably a misconception or whatever, but we do have local generation. We have enough local generation to supply power to the whole. If there would have been a grid collapse during that polar vortex, we could have separated ourselves from the grid and provided power to the whole community locally. And I want to thank the board for your support last year in making decisions to clean and do maintenance on those diesel fuel tanks and fill them up. I mean, and we bought fuel at a price, with the pandemic to fill those up that really benefited us as well. So again, a lot of decisions made that were great. Staff, their maintenance, it'd be like driving a 1973 vehicle to Alaska and back. I don't know many of us that would do that or feel very good about it, but they've got this unit in very, very good condition. And hats off to them. So They're gonna look at the capacity credits. You know, the units that didn't show up, I don't know what kind of discussion they're gonna have with those.
Send them our way.
Send them our way. I think, you know, well, I don't know how that'll work out, but I think we showed our ability to respond when needed, which also demonstrated our staff's ability to maintain and run those units. So it was, and I think the pool appreciated what we were able to do, because we didn't just save ourselves money, we saved the pool money. Total market revenue from that unit was $4.9 million. And part of that went into the pool because of our agreement where we receive capacity credits. And of course, not only on this 2.7 million, but we got 7% of that other back somewhere in that neighborhood due to the benefit it made to the pool. So just a win-win. I mean, it's just really, really happy to be in the position we are.
I think after this, we've proven that we take care of our units. We've proven that we can answer the call when called on. So.
Well, the bottom line is it's customers that win. We saved a ton of money, and the ability to do that, keep rates low. I mean, keeping services on and rates low. This is a great example of what our people do to make that happen. So
I don't know if we're good or lucky, but
yeah,
whichever one it is, it worked out well.
Anyway, kind of moving on, there was discussion, you know, there may be, and that should be in that last bullet point on other items discussed between requirements and stricter, that should be and. So the market's gonna look at maybe changing and making stricter rules for your winter capacity ratings for units that you put in to meet your resource adequacy. So I think we're in pretty good shape there as well. So I'm not concerned about if they change the rules. I'm pretty sure we could already meet those. So just kind of moving down a little bit. Did have a meeting. I want to thank Steve for kind of hooking me up with Curtis Gregory. I did send him some information. We're trying to find ways to fund our wastewater plant improvements. You know, hopefully there's some money. There's a lot of talk about infrastructure at the federal level and how to help that. We will actively look for those type of funds to help out with our improvements down there. So doing what we can, but I do appreciate Stephen.
Well, I can't take all the credit for that. Councilman Aaron's got him in contact with me.
Okay.
And then I got him in contact with you, so.
Well, I appreciate that.
No problem.
Appreciate that.
I really hope that'll be very beneficial to us. It's a pretty exciting opportunity.
You got to try. I mean, it's we've got some other people looking as well. So, you know, it's just kind of like the broadband money we were able to get. I mean, anytime we can apply for grants and get money in to help our customers is huge. So moving on a little bit, the USDA broadband grant, non-standard bid document, we did get an email that is approved. We're waiting for the letter to be signed. So we're trying to get those bid packages ready and get those rolling. They also mentioned that the round two, they're about to finish with the closing documents on those. So hopefully the second round will go much better once we close. We've kind of been through the hoops before. We know what requirements we need to meet or make, and we can get this thing going. I know we get a lot of phone calls about this project, and we're getting closer. We talked about I was going through the bill, so if you look at disbursements, I was just kind of going through those. If you go to page 5. You can see the direct impact of I&I on financial. You go to page 5 and you look at under the sewer column and you see the $53,000 there. That's normally 30-some thousand. That is our cost to pump and treat rainwater. You can see a direct correlation between rain and expense.
And that's why I handed out the GL, so it kind of shows you what our previous month's bills have been.
And if you look at all those, so you've got lift stations involved as well. Our total cost for pumping for that month, because it doesn't just affect the main sewer plant, it affects the pump station was $57,759. So we have got to stop wasting money on pumping rainwater. And that's what Burns and McDonald and this process has started for. But I was going through that and it just jumped out at me. You know, you look at that monthly and, you know, you don't really think much about it. And I knew it was in the $30,000 range, but I think that's just a good example of what the cost to our community is from this I&I issue. So just kind of wanted to point that out as well.
Without going too deep into that again, a lot of communities are having the same problem, right?
Yes.
So I mean, is there anybody to look to and see how they've done it? I mean, you can't really just go start knocking on everybody's doors.
I think we'll get some recommendations
Okay.
with that as well. It was funny because I think Grant had been at a conference and as you mentioned, other communities were having issues. Well, I think at that conference, Grant had heard that, you know, the police were escorting people around, and this was in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And I told that, and the guy behind me with Burns and McDonald's goes, "That was us." So they've got a lot of experience
Okay.
and can provide plenty of suggestions. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
I think more than anything though, Wick, when they do the flow study, if we can kind of pinpoint a certain section of town, it may not even be knocking on doors, it could just be a little more in-depth look at, you know, even manholes or something like that. I know Grant's guys do a good job of looking at that stuff, but you know, or as much boring and stuff that's done today, there could be some place where someone's actually bored through a main or something like that where we're getting water. We just haven't caught it yet. But at least with that study, it'll kind of point you in the right direction.
I don't think you'll ever solve the problem 100%, but if you can limit it just by your big checklist items.
There's options we can do on the private side, possibly with, you know, with Ed's sales of homes and things, there's options.
Sorry.
Well, it's okay. In my view on it, just another little short, it's a community problem. We're going to have to work with people to solve this. And I think when you take that approach, it's a lot easier to get from point A to point B. And we're spending enough money to pump water. We may help customers versus, I mean, you're going to spend it here, you're going to spend it here. Do we want to help people and work with them? So that's kind of my thought now. We'll see when we get there. But that's, I think, a better approach than knocking on doors and forcing people into things. That's all I have. If the board has questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's move on to cash disbursements. I don't know if we've ever talked about this before, but one thing that I notice in here is we have a lot of expenses, but a lot of that goes to our local businesses and contractors, and I think that's great. Let's always do that.
What's pay 10? Is that what it is?
That's a benefit we offer to our employees where they can, maybe try to explain a little bit better. The
Patient,
patient, yeah.
it's a
Kind of like a personal loan.
program where they can do, pay for vet or medical bills on credit. And then they can pay it back through payroll deduction. It's $0, no fees.
I just never noticed that before.
Glad we can offer stuff like that. So. That's really
I
cool.
am too.
That is good.
Yeah.
We started that a couple of years ago. It pairs really well with our high deductible health plan, helps folks with that initial out-of-pocket exposure we've got.
I move we approve cash disbursements.
Second. Motion second to approve cash disbursements. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pay those. Is there any other business for the board?
Just one. Jim, I need to get Chris into one of those, that fiber box by the recycle center, so, for the cameras.
The big one, or the one on the pole.
The one on the pole. I've got a couple keys from Jeff, they didn't work, so I'll give you your keys back. And neither do you.
Neither do I.
Use the dollar.
So, but if you're around today, I'll try to get Chris with you. I think we have everything else, just wanted to look at it before we build it. That's all I have.
Next board meeting's Thursday, April 29th. Clear your schedules.
Perfect.
And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much.